there's a power in being okay with boredom, right? And then realizing that boredom is actually a very important state to be in, right? Like the easiest thing that a lot of people resonate with is like, when do we have the best ideas, right? In the shower,
You're bored.
taking a shit, or while you're driving, right?
Yeah.
The things when you don't have pen and paper in your hands, you can't reach for your phone. The thing when you're focusing on something else you're doing and your brain is doing something else in the background,
Right.
right? When you're not focused on the task at hand. So that's the idea behind boredom, right? If you can find moments to just free your head, right, from like whatever the task is, and that can be as simple as like going for a walk, right? Just closing the computer, just changing the medium will often help you get to the problem you're trying to solve anyway, right? As opposed to like staring at the screen and doing the thing. So that was what that moment kind of was for me, is like I hadn't taken a breather to recognize like what I was doing. I was just in like basically automatic mode. You know, I know I got to do this. I clock in the morning, I do this thing, I go to the next thing. It was like a robot, you know, and I wasn't, to your point, resting. That's the big one, right? But I also wasn't realizing the toll it was taking on not only my mentality, right, and my physical being, but effectively the work too, right? Because once you spread too thin, your work starts to decrease, and it's hard to notice that when everything's decreasing just a little bit, right? Everything just seems all the same, and then you're like, oh, actually, I didn't do that as well as I thought I could have. You know, whatever. Right. No one's going to realize. And so a lot of times people don't, right? Because we hold ourselves to a higher standard than anyone else does. But when you start to feel not good about the things you're producing, right, or the things that you're putting your time into, or to your point, where you get to the edge of it and you go, oh, I really didn't want to do this. Why am I here? Why am I doing? That's something to realize, right? Now, some of that is like could be performance anxiety or like moment, you know, the stress rate before. But the way I like to think about it, right, is like, if it happens once, it's okay. If it happens two, it's like, okay. If it happens a third time, it's a pattern, right? Like that's something to recognize. And then realize like your body, your brain, something is trying to tell you something. And it may not mean you need to shut it down, right? Or turn down that opportunity, whatever. But you need to recognize that something's happening. And it's not going to be clear as to like, is it thing one, thing two, or thing three that's causing it? But you need to then look at those things in unison and go, okay, something's got to give. And that may mean decreasing all, it may mean decreasing one, you know, whatever it is. But I think the easy thing to grab for is like, oh, clearly this thing that triggered this stress is the problem. But that's not always the case. Like it wasn't for me. You know, I immediately was like, oh, it's because I'm working a lot. And it's like, it wasn't the work. It was the overcommitment,